No, thank you. Okay, best thing I ever did was convert. Great. Encourage it. Yeah. There are problems in all major belief systems. But if you really want to contribute to better Judaism, the only true way you're going to do it is from within. So if you want to help improve Judaism, convert and make a difference. Why does the Talmud say that Jesus? So this individual in the Talmud is not for sure that it's Jesus, by the way. Yeshua Notri, he's placed around 250 years before the original person, so it might not be the same person. Okay, if for some reason, if it was, then I would be against that statement. I mean, assuming it's the same Jesus that appears in the New Testament, which seems a lot more docile than this Yeshua Notri character in the Talmud that presents him as wicked. Okay. So this is probably the biggest service I do here on TikTok and on YouTube now. Letting people know that it's possible to convert if they wanted to. That's it. And they could have a part in improving ethical monotheism. It's not just monotheism, it's ethical monotheism. And I was thinking about it today. I know Dennis Prager always promotes the idea of ethical monotheism. What does that really mean? Right? Monotheism on its own is not inherently ethical. I mean, there's nothing inherently moral about just being monotheistic or following any ritualistic act, right? I mean, apart from moral acts, the Torah is probably made up of half of ethical laws. But the idea of ethical monotheism is reinforcing the aspects of the Torah, which I think are the majority, that our God's an ethical God and implores us to also live ethical lives. This is something that I believe is lost many times, especially when I see people on social media arguing religion from a completely just theological perspective and not an ethical perspective, meaning they don't care who they drive away as long as they happen to push their dogma, their doctrine. That's what matters to them, because I guess ultimately all they're trying to do is get into heaven. This is not the reason to become religious or remain religious. Okay. The only tangible utilitarian purpose to religion, okay, is improving the world. If not, it's just a mystical joyride that starts and ends with you. And I would say that's probably how the vast majority of people view religion in their lives. It has nothing to do with ethical, moral behavior. I guess they fail to acknowledge that they're living in a society entrenched in biblical values, that the Bible has sensitized their surroundings to such an extent that they don't have to make the case for ethical monotheism, but just monotheism. If you don't constantly remind people of the ethical part, you'll lose it. Yeah, this dude still promotes that Judaism is better. It's just like I'm limited to real estate here. People on YouTube probably don't know what I'm responding to, but I'm on TikTok also, so I'm trying to respond to statements. What's up, Mateo? What's your opinion on Jesus? I think Jesus was a good guy. I just don't think he's God or the Messiah. Yeah, this idea that you have to hate Jesus or make fun of him, no, that's not gonna. First of all, there's nothing to make fun of in terms of how he's presented in the New Testament. Okay, you don't have to believe he's God or the Messiah, but to automatically assume that he's a bad guy just because you're not a Christian. No. Okay. Guys, like the show. People who disagree get on first. Jews get on first from that perspective. Yeah. Let's see. We can get good dialogue going. It's a meaningful conversation where we can all grow. So Mateo's asking about the Jesus in the Talmud. I don't believe it's the same guy. If it ties him to an individual called Yeshua ben Prachia, that he was a student of Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachia, a student that went off, that was disobedient, was delving into the dark arts. It couldn't have been the same individual. I think Yeshua ben Prachia lived almost 200 years after the original Jesus. So I don't know, maybe there's something to the claim that the New Testament Jesus is some sort of composite character made up of different individuals. I don't know. The Talmud presents him as unethical, evil. Fine, it's just a story. It's quite similar, right? Ben Pantera, that he's born from an illicit relationship between a Roman soldier and a Hebrew or Jewish woman is like, I don't even know why it mentions these statements. The Talmud mentions a lot of silly ideas that we don't necessarily have to believe in. But if for some reason it was this individual named Jesus and the New Testament account is correct on his behavior and him ultimately trying to get people to come closer to God and Torah, then for sure I'd be against any insulting of the man. Yeah, it's the similarities are there. It mentions his mother Miriam being a hairdresser. I don't know where hairdresser appears in the New Testament, but it talks about her being the daughter of Eli, which the New Testament does. Her father was Eli. Who knows? Who knows? But anyways, I think first and foremost, I think Jews, we have to strive to first be honest, in this case, tell the truth, and then give our opinions on the whole situation. Any Jewish person who knows the New Testament, and yes, Jews typically don't read the New Testament, there is no way for them to come to the conclusion, even if they were Torah scholars, like they actually knew what's allowed and what's not allowed from a theological perspective, they wouldn't have believed Jesus was liable to the death penalty. No way. Nor would they have concluded that he was a bad individual. Of course, they wouldn't say he's God the Messiah. It's fine. There's many rabbis we admire that we don't believe this individual is God or the Messiah. But the idea that it's unanimous that the Jews are proud for unaliving Jesus, at least how the New Testament lays it down, not Jews who know the story. Well, not Jews who know the story and have an ethical backbone. The Jews believe in apocalypse. Yeah, they believe in apocalypse. I don't subscribe to all the different ideas in terms of the end days, if that's what you mean by apocalypse. I don't subscribe to all the many different interpretations of what happens in the end days. According to the Torah, there is no notion of end days. There's later days. So later days, I think it's Acharita Yamim, just means it could be tomorrow, it could be in the future. But the end of the world is not in the Torah. I don't know if I'd call it apocalypse. Yeah, no, apocalypse means like end of the world. Or how, okay, the mystics wouldn't say it's the end of the world. I don't even think Christians will consider it the end of the world. It'll be more of an end of an age, and thus ushering in the Messianic age, which I don't even know really what that means, at least grammatically. Like, what does Messianic age really mean? What, the age of the Messiah? Yeah, but then you're making the assumption that this is the final one, right? The Messianic age, I mean, it sounds perpetual. And surprising, that's how many Jews teach it, and that's how Christians teach it as well. This notion of perpetual anything is not in the Torah. Yeah, no, in terms of terrible upheaval, this notion does appear. It's not monolithic, but that things are going to get a lot worse. The understanding is regarding Mashiach that he either comes when things get really, really bad, or things are really, really good. So the Talmud says that if things are good, he's coming on a donkey, and if things are bad, he's coming in the clouds, right? Like angry, to judge. So they're both opinions, but they're not monolithic. It means no one could agree on it. Essentially, it's all made up. It's not in the Torah. Let's see. What's up with TikTok? TikTok goes up and down. Guys, like the show. And if you happen to disagree on anything, we are very respectful in this show. Let's talk about our disagreements. Let's see if we can come to some accord. You see, I start talking about the apocalypse and the Talmud, and everything goes downhill. Anyways, yes, in terms of anything metaphysical, for sure having to do with some sort of end days, there's nothing monolithic in Judaism about it. There are people, there's might making right, that what you hear the most, you begin to think that it must be the way, just because that's all I see on YouTube. It's all I see on TikTok. It's there. It's all over the place. It's all over the place. Start doing Daf Yomi and see how many weird statements appear in the Talmud about crazy ideas. Aren't too much question. What do you think about talking ideas outside the Torah? Oh yeah, I don't think the Torah is all in all. Yeah, you mean in life? I think we have to in some way be equally secular as we are equally religious. This idea of being strictly religious only really exists doctrinally in Islam. This is why Islam lacks tolerance, because their goal is to in some way institute perpetual utopia. And it seems that every attempt of man trying to do that, instead of just getting by ethically, right, any attempt at trying to make the world perfect typically ends with blood and carnage. This is why we have this idea of a Messianic age. Why did it say no political, but Israel is in the description? Where's Israel in the description? Let's talk Judaism. I don't remember even putting Israel in the description, but fine. If it is, some other people of Israel. Yeah, so it's ingrained in Judaism to distrust our leaders. Now, distrust doesn't mean disobey. We have this understanding of not following the majority to do evil, instructing us to follow the majority to do good. The majority meaning the seat of power in Judaism, which is the Sanhedrin. It doesn't exist anymore. However, we're supposed to be very skeptical on them. Always, we answer to a higher call, to a higher chain of command. If for some reason they ever told us to violate the Torah. But this idea that we could ever assume that our leaders could speak for God to such an extent that the world would be perfect. Nonsense. I mean, the closest thing we ever had was the time of Solomon regarding peace, right? It's weird how they name these characters, because Shlomo, right? It's tied to the whole notion of peace, of shalem, of completeness, because there was essentially no wars during his reign. But that's probably the closest thing that we will come to regarding a Messianic age. However, this is not how most rabbis teach it. Most rabbis teach a Messianic age like perfect, like people floating around on clouds. Right? A Messianic age just means that you're living in your land in a redeemed state. That's all it means. Even this is how Maimonides holds also. And he quotes Shmuel in the Talmud that in the Messianic age, nothing's going to change, with the exception that Israel's going to have proper sovereignty, right? Secular and religious. They're going to be able to govern themselves. But the idea that things are going to be perfect enough to even start unaliving people in the name of God, for that to exist, wow. I mean, God would have to be so involved in the lives of these individuals. Anyways, let's see. So yeah, today I don't really want to talk too much about Israel and Iran. We get it. Israel's under attack. I support Israel, even though I don't consider myself a Zionist. There are actually a lot of people who hold this position, the non-Zionist position, but they just don't explain it much. And many of the black hatters on TikTok, I would say, are probably Baltruvas, so they grew up Zionists, so they incorporate religious Zionism into their religion, which is it. They don't necessarily know what they're preaching. There was some guy up here who started yelling at me once, telling me there's no distinction between Rabbi Akiva and David Ben Gurion, and this is like a Hasidic Jew. Yes, within Chabad, you get this approach, but it's not the traditional Haredi approach, right? Even though ultra-Orthodox Judaism has been tolerant, like of a state and the benefits of having a synagogue and a falafel shop in every corner, they traditionally, at least in like yeshivish circles, always made a distinction between the government and the religious people living in it. I'm very much against dumbifications. When people try to water stuff down just to make it more palatable, for some, they don't like when I come up on these lives because I try to make a distinction. Less because I know there's religious people listening, not necessarily religious Jewish people, but religious Muslims, religious Christians. And I think what fuels the argument of the opposition is when they hear people on TikTok saying that the right to Israel has to exist is a biblical one, but the people making this claim are secular, and they many times give a horrible representation of the God of Israel, instead of just saying that, you know what, consider it Jewish manifest destiny. We think that we could do something better with the land, right? Then you can, whether it's sanctioned by God or not. But they in some way have to use a religious argument, which again frustrates religious people and just fuels their anger towards the inhabitants of the state of Israel. And then people will call me out on it. Well, like, how can you support a secular country called Israel if you claim to be religious? And then I have to make that distinction between being half religious and half secular, because I have to live on this planet, and how God in some way considers, once we're in exile, tolerance as a virtue. He tells us that in the countries he exiles us to, that we should pray for the governments, right? Pray for its leaders, build houses. In other words, the most we can expect from our host countries that are in exile, while we're in exile, is tolerance. Yes, instill values as much as you can in wherever you happen to go, ethical, biblical values, but make a distinction between utopia / a messianic age and real life. That's daily for us as Jews. Now, the Islamic perspective is different. The Islamic perspective is utopia now. And this is why I've never been a fan of when Chabad says Mashiach now, because I don't even think they know what they're talking about. Okay, I mean, do you really want Mashiach now? Do you know what that entails? But they don't care. Some people are born with a fanatical streak to them, and everyone around them suffers. Right? When elephants play, the grass suffers. A lot of people make statements and don't care about their consequences, and that's the problem with being too mystically inclined. Being overly mystically inclined means having to take responsibility or say sorry for the mishaps of your decisions, because it's all sanctioned by God. It doesn't matter if it doesn't pan out now. God is going to make it pan out later, right? I mean, when do you say stop or enough, and let's in some way instill logic in our thinking, right? Things that we could see coming down the road. No, Mashiach is going to take care of it. They'll just keep on doing this. I mean, come on, man. So that's the major difference between Islam and Judaism. Islam is less compromising on secular issues, while I think the Jewish reality is that we're in exile. In exile, we can expect utopian results. But of course, Islam has its vision of a global caliphate where there's nowhere for you to run, and if it's not full Islam, it's nothing. They rather destroy it. While in Judaism, there's a famous prayer. It sounds a little cliched, that we thank God for the world as it is, and then we pray for one day for the world as it should be. It's there is no distinction in the Islamic / fanatical mind. What it is now is never going to be good enough. And they will fight tooth and nail to make it what it should be. And doesn't matter how many people they unalive in their conquest. But anyways. This is me deciding what is Judaism. In terms of me deciding what Judaism is, I'm telling you the plain Torah understanding of what Judaism is. And not so much, forget about Judaism. What Torah's teaching. I get it. Like, Judaism is what people today want to say Judaism is. Torah's Torah. I mean, Judaism is essentially what Jews happen to do. I mean, same thing like Islam. I mean, Islam could be what the people are doing today, but not necessarily what the Hadith or the Quran endorses, right? At least from a Jewish perspective, that applies to Christianity as well. Any parallels with the Apostle Paul and Bilam? No, I don't know. Yeah, but what's the point of being a teacher if you're not going to make any objective statements, if you're not going to take a position? I understand that's maybe the reform idea, that you dance around issues and just let people do whatever they want. The idea that you get to choose what your leaders tell you, right, kind of defeats the purpose of having any type of leadership. Now, the thing is, people aren't forced to accept what I say. If they don't like what I say, they could go to another teacher, right? Mix it up. I never tell someone you can't learn from somebody else. Perhaps you can learn what not to do. But the idea that it's wrong for me to tell people what I think Judaism is, and with the defense, by the way, because many people, they monologue and they'll tell you what they think Judaism is, and you challenge them and they'll start yelling at you and block you. Okay, that's clearly not what we do on this channel. It's not what you claim to know, it's what you can defend. And I think I could defend my statements. But of course, I welcome people, and I've dialogued with many, and they have many good challenges. And yeah, I'm not married to my ideas, nor should you be married to yours. Okay, we always have to be willing to grow and change. And I think this is why people feel comfortable talking religion with me, because I'm not fanatical. I'm not fanatical. Yeah. So, where's everyone on TikTok? Oh, we're also on YouTube and Facebook. Welcome, Senate.
Hey, what's going on, man? Senate, so you know how to pronounce it. Senate.
Senate. Sorry.
Hey, I had a question though, about what you were speaking about with like Zionism versus, well, I guess what I want to ask is, in Israel, like right now, I was reading stuff about the red heifers and the altar, and how Hamas, one of the leaders said that was part of the reason why they attacked. Is the general public in Israel, are they like pro the altar, pro the heifers, or how does that look inside Israel?
I would say that the average Israeli doesn't know what the paraduma or the red heifer is. They'll think a red cow. What does it have? I don't even think that the average Orthodox Jew is familiar. Right? I mean, they know the story. It's funny. It appears in a section of the Torah that it's probably the most boring section to read, which is the Levitical priesthood and how to prepare, states of holiness. So it talks about getting a cow that is unblemished, either brown or red, and then they sacrifice the cow. They burn it. They take the ashes and they put the ashes in water. They either sprinkle the people with this water or they immerse in it. And like this, they're able to remove what's called tumat met, which is the impurity that's imparted to you with contact with the dead. And like this, you're able to enter the temple. If we don't have the red heifer, you can build a temple. I don't even know how you can build it. You'd have to walk around amongst it to be able to build it. You can't enter the temple without being immersed in the waters that has the ashes of the red heifer. Almost every time the Palestinians or Arab/Muslims attack Israel, it's always for some frivolous claim, right? A religious claim. One, that they're tunneling under the Al-Aqsa Mosque, or they're trying to build a temple, or they're trying to do this. Jews don't want to build a temple. Jews in Israel are not religious people. Okay, there are religious people in Israel, but the vast majority of the inhabitants in Israel do not identify as religious Jews. They don't care. In 1967, they had the Temple Mount and they gave it back to the Arabs. So I didn't hear that reason on why they were shooting rockets.
Would you say so? Would people say, so Zionism or whatever, however they label that, would that be considered religious, like a religious movement?
So not at its inception. So Zionism, at least what became popular Zionism with a capital Z, was Herzl Zionism. Now, Jews always dreamt back for the time that they would be brought back to their land in a redeemed state and continue the line of biblical Israel. This is a little different than the secular Zionist movement that was created in Europe, which is what gave birth to the state of Israel. Now, there is a form of religious Zionism, which really stems back to the 30s with the students and the ideas of Rav Kook. Rabbi Avram McCohen Cook was the first chief rabbi of Palestine. It was called Palestine back then, in the 30s, before the state of Israel became a state. I think he passed away before 1948, and he had an idea that God could in some way usher in the Messianic age off the back of secular Jews who were forming the country. What do they call them? Halutzim, like the pioneers.
Okay.
There's the people who hold to this ideology are typically found in the settlements. The hilltop settlers, the ones who are trying to build the land but are religious today, right? Because the settlers are religious, while the I don't know how you pluralize it. Those in the kibbutzim, the kibbutzniks, but that's Russian, maybe kibbutznikim, whatever. Those are typically secular. There's probably like maybe a handful of religious kibbutzes out there, but they're going bankrupt. So the settlers typically adhered to the ideology of Rav Kook, right? And there's a whole yeshiva in Jerusalem called Merkaz HaRav, which is the heart of the religious Zionist movement. The way you can tell who a religious Zionist is by the type of kippah they wear. Okay. So the type of kippah is like a knit kippah, like a crocheted style kippah, and it'll be either in like different colors or white. It's typically 2 or 3 tone, like knit kippot. While the suede kippah, or like the black kippah, are the Haredi faction. Although there are some Haredi Jews that are religious Zionists, they're called Chardal, which is like Haredi Dati Leumi, but it's not a big movement. So yeah.
What would Netanyahu? Because I saw when I was studying, just trying to learn about everything that's going on with the red heifer stuff, I saw this video where back in the day, Netanyahu was talking to, I guess, a rabbi that people were claiming was a Mashiach or something like that. And he was like, they were having a discussion on camera. Basically, I guess he was telling Netanyahu, like, you got to hurry up and, we got to build a temple, or, but this was like years and years and years ago. So would he be
talking about? Yeah.
Would he be considered a religious Zionist? Would Netanyahu be considered?
Not religious at all. I mean, he's not an atheist. I don't think he's an atheist, but he's just like a secular Jewish guy. He met with the Lubavitcher Rebbe before he became, was it before? I don't, because he's been prime minister before, but he was also, I believe, the governor of Hebron. So he came down to New York, and the Rebbe had this campaign that anyone could basically meet the Rebbe, and he gives them $1. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe actually told him not to go into politics. It's not that he endorsed his whole campaign, but there's reels and reels of videos, and all the people the Rebbe met with. There was a big line that for 2 or 3 seconds he'll give him $1. And most of these discussions end with the Rebbe saying, let's pray that the Messiah should come and build a temple, this and that. But it falls on deaf ears with the secular person, right? I mean, he just wants, I don't know, to feel culturally Jewish. But Netanyahu is not a religious Jew. He's not anti-religious. What Likud, I'm not sure that we moved around, is partially religious. Like it is right wing. I remember when I was in Israel, Moshe Feiglin was in Likud. He's also like religious Zionist. Many religious Zionists belong to Likud, just because most religious Zionists are on the right, while left-wing Jews, those who support Shinui and just secular parties, are typically the ones who are still pushing for a 2-state solution, still pushing for, like giving more over to the Arabs. But yeah, no. The state of Israel doesn't care about building a temple. Is not going to build a temple, mainly because they don't want to give religious people that much power. The religious in Israel within the government only really control 2 main bodies of the government, and that's conversion and marriage. And they're about to phase that out also, because it seems that the religious people, at least those in the Haredi party, are not serious. Like they don't take them seriously, even in the Knesset, because they basically just vote to get more welfare for those who have a lot of kids, and they sort of like sell themselves out to other parties. They're not a serious group. This is why, I mean, I'd rather Israel stay secular, I mean, for the time being, till we get our act together, because religious people don't know what the heck they're doing.
Okay. And is there gonna be, so the people in Israel now, like the secular people, they don't believe that there's gonna be a, you know, a messianic age, like a Mashiach reign in Israel?
No, if you're not
No.
religious, how can you come to that conclusion? They're like secular Americans. Like, not every secular American is an atheist, right? But they just don't believe. They just not, you know, I mean, they'll keep the Sabbath in their own way. They'll drive to their parents' house and stuff like that. And I mean, like, show some reverence, like if they see somebody praying, but they don't believe in that stuff. They don't. In a Messianic age, I mean, if someone truly believed in a Messianic age, you would not identify as a secular person, or you'd be more religious than you are secular. But no, secular. I would encourage people to visit Israel and to leave Jerusalem, because inside Jerusalem, you think everybody's religious. Once you get out of Jerusalem, you realize that this is a secular country. You know, the vast majority of people in Israel are more secular than they are religious. America, I would say, is more religious per capita than the U.S. is. For sure, America is more on the right than Israel is. Right now, in different areas, right and left means different things. For some reason, in Israel, I never heard a right-wing politician even mention abortion, or you know, trans, anything. But it's more like on either social policy, national security. But yeah.
Well, that's maybe what it is. Maybe what I'm looking at is basically everything in Jerusalem. Like, maybe that's why I'm getting that perception, like it's a very religious culture out there. Just by seeing stuff, I guess, in Jerusalem, you know, the holy city and all the archaeology and stuff like that. I just assume
there's a misconception. Listen, there's a misconception on YouTube and on TikTok made a lot by these Chabad rabbis trying to get everyone on board in some, like, you know, Shlomo Karabakh, Kumbaya, like all the Jews are united. Nonsense. Okay. Haredi Jews in Israel dislike the secular, and the secular dislike Haredim. You know, Haredim are ultra-Orthodox Jews. All right. I mean, Haredim consider secular Jews in Israel Gentiles, and secular Jews in Israel consider Haredim parasites. This notion that we're all on board working together is nonsense. Okay. It's not. For sure, when Israel's getting attacked, right, they'll all be, you know, sandbagging a wall together or something like that. You know, I get it, but that doesn't mean they get along. In America, Jews don't get along. Okay, it's like only on TikTok in front of Gentiles and stuff like that. This is why people attack me and say, like, don't say what you say, because you're giving ammunition to the other side. You know, but I'm just saying the truth.
That's why I watch your channel, bro, because I feel like you're very reasonable, and you don't have it doesn't seem like you're forcing somebody on your belief. You just answering what you believe. That's why I like your channel, because I don't get any sense of you're trying to like spin any propaganda or anything like that. I feel like you know, I can get some good answers from you.
I mean, I'm spreading Judaism, you know, so as much as I acknowledge the issues that Israel has and Jews have, I still encourage people to become Jewish. While those who like cherry pick what they give over to the Gentile world and make Judaism sound all flowery, don't encourage it. You know, so who's doing a better job here? With the person who encourages, or the people who discourage it, you know, which actually builds more resentment, because they're like, what are you guys hiding? You know, it's like, why can't I walk into a synagogue? Why can't I see what you guys are doing? You know, I'm like, no, go to your synagogue, walk in, make your presence known, and know that we got problems. But if you want to,
yeah, when I talk to rabbis, or when I try to talk to rabbis or Jewish people, I'm in Baltimore, so there's a big Jewish community, Pikesville, Reisterstown area. So like, when, you know, they're polite, but you know, I believe in, you know, I believe Yehoshua is the Mashiach. That's my personal belief. And you know, even some questions I've asked on your show, you know, I want to get the perspective of, you know, somebody who studies Torah that doesn't come to the same conclusion as me. And whenever I try to ask those kind of questions, like, it's like an immediate, like, you know, nah, you just, basically I get a sense that they look at me like I'm crazy. You know what I'm saying? So, and I don't feel like the love in the conversation, you know, so it's good to
Yeah, I don't look at you like you're crazy, by the way. I mean, I think, and this is what makes it very controversial, I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe he's God or the Messiah or any of that stuff. However, I don't think that should disqualify you as a Jewish person, as long as you keep Torah. Okay, mainly because the notion of the Messiah doesn't even appear in the Torah, literally. Now we're going to start excluding people from an idea that doesn't appear in the Torah, even if someone would attribute divine qualities to this individual. And I fight against the same people in Judaism who try to, attribute divine qualities to rabbis, saying they can't sin. Right? It's the same thing. There's huge double standards that I just call out. If you keep Torah and I keep Torah, then we're brothers. That's it. I'm in the covenant. You're in the covenant. We're in the same covenant. And it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't matter who you think the Messiah happens to be. It doesn't change anything. Okay. I mean, from your perspective, it may change where, like, if I go to your heaven or not, but that's your heaven. Jews create their own little heavens. I mean, I believe Chabad has their own little heaven for people who believe that their Rebbe is Mashiach, right? The Torah doesn't talk about heaven. The Torah doesn't talk about hell. It talks about keeping Torah commandments and making in some way heaven on earth, right? Having rain in its proper season, seeing your children grow old, having peace. That's the result of keeping Torah, not the results of everyone agreeing theologically. You're never going to agree theologically, right? Who cares what you believe? The Torah doesn't. The Torah cares what you do. That's it. So it doesn't bother me. I don't believe that God became a man. Okay, for 33 years. Like, I don't believe that. I don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah, like, in any way. But you know what? I also don't believe other things that Jews teach about God being split up into 10 pieces called the Sefirot, and that there's a group, like I just mentioned Lubavitch, that believes that their teacher is the Messiah. I don't believe in that either. Meaning that there's an array of different ideas you can have within Judaism. The difference is when you start pushing people away and saying, no, you can't roll with us now just because you don't agree with us theologically. You're never going to agree with everyone theologically. However, you could judge people on how they behave. Okay. I mean, if someone is, I don't know, kicking around dogs or something, we could say, hey, that's messed up. That's my dog. Don't kick my dog. Okay. That we can judge. But you're going to judge people now because of what they happen to be convinced of or not convinced of? I mean, how can you punish someone for being convinced or not convinced of an idea? If someone is convinced, right, that there's a complex unity in God, how the Kabbalists teach, that he's represented in 10 emanations, they're convinced of this. Okay, how am I going to unconvince them, and why would God punish them for something they happen to be convinced of? Okay, now in terms of how you behave, i.e. how it starts affecting other people, that God could hold you accountable for. All right, yes, that like pick up the trash in your yard, stop throwing rocks. I mean, this you can adjudicate for. What you happen to be convinced of, right? I mean, you see some female and you don't find her attractive, and now I'm supposed to hold it against you. What do you mean my sister's ugly? You're just not convinced that she's pretty. I mean, I'm supposed to have anger towards you because of something that you're just not convinced of. Maybe she's not trying hard enough. Maybe she should go to the gym. I don't know, right? However, this is why the Torah doesn't place a religious test on people. It doesn't tell people, what do you believe? Are you sure? Utter this creed. It doesn't say all that. It says, keep my commandments, right? Sure, make a public declaration on who you're rolling with. You're rolling with the God of Israel, and the way you worship this God is by keeping his commandments, right? Make that declaration, but who cares what you believe? Because people can lie about their beliefs. You can't lie about your actions, right? You're either doing them or they're not. This is why, I mean, I'm excited, to know that I belong to a belief system that judges you on how you behave, not what you believe in. And I get it. There's many Jews nowadays that contradict everything I'm saying nowadays, right? You have to believe in this. You have to believe in that. That's much, much later, by the way. And that may be to be part of your community. Okay. But I mean, from a Torah perspective, all you have to do is commit to keep the commandments. That's it. And then we're all in the same covenant together. Now, you may not want me to pray in your synagogue, and this guy may not want you to pray in his synagogue. But at the end of the day, we're all in the covenant. We're all Israel, and when push comes to shove, we're all going to fight against, our enemies together. And this is what people have to learn. This is what I'm pushing on this channel here. Ethical monotheism. I'm pushing Torah, but I feel that there's a lot of rabbis who misrepresent the Torah, and they cause more division, like not amongst themselves, because that's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to make like unity amongst born Jews, like that's even, like so important, right? It's more important to bring the world together, right? Now what does that mean? Bring the world together on our platform, meaning bring our enemies in, make enemies into friends. That's clearly more important instead of saying I'm going to separate the world between blood and tribe. But yeah.
Thanks. All right, man. We appreciate your time as always, brother. Be safe.
All right, bro. All right. Ancient biblical oils. It's been a while. In South Africa in the house.
Hey, Asher.
Hey, what's up, man? You're still in Cape Town, or
Good
no?
to see you.
You were in you're in South Africa, right?
Yes, I'm in South Africa. It's been a while.
Yeah, no, but you were moving to America, right?
Yes. I think there's a bit of an echo here. I'm gonna mute my mic.
Okay, all right, never mind. All right, Ultra, what's up?
What's up, Asher? When you said Chabad, are you talking about the Lubavitch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the same group.
Are they still considered Hasidic?
Yeah. Although, like many Hasidim don't call them Hasidic, even though they're older. Chabad, it's really Lubavitch. Chabad came out of Lubavitch, but they are one of the oldest Hasidic groups in existence today. But because they're so, I don't know what's the word, metropolitan, cosmopolitan. Because they invented Jewish outreach, they look a lot more modern than other people. Now, in many areas, they're more stricter. Like they're stricter than other Hasidim. For example, they don't trim their beard, which is not a common thing. The Semitic Tzedek, which is their teacher, teaches that you aren't supposed to trim your beard. So they have these like crazy caveman beards. Even Shmuley Boteach, who happens to be Chabad, if you notice, he has a long beard. But what these Lubavitchers do is that they tie. Hold on, let me see if my image comes out here. Yeah, but they tie their beard into a little knot and they tuck it into their shirt. Yuck, right?
Yeah.
So it's a Chabad thing to do that. Yeah, but they are Hasidic, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do have to commend them though for their outreach. They got a strong outreach to like non-observant Jews or people that don't really observe Torah. Like they encourage them to become knowledgeable within the Torah and Judaism. And, it's commendable to me.
It's for sure commendable. I mean, I think it's a good idea. I think it becomes a bad idea when you limit it to blood.
Yeah, limited to. Yeah, I know what you mean.
So I don't know. I mean, for sure, in terms of PR, it hurts us at the end. It's probably better that they didn't do outreach than to only single out a little sliver of humanity to do outreach for. Because what you're basically saying is that everyone else is not worth bringing in. There's an episode of Seinfeld, like where there's these cult carpet cleaners who go around and they clean your carpet for free, but they try to brainwash you to enter their cult. So George Costanza, like, uses their services, but they never try to convert him. And then he's like, "What? Am I not good enough?" And they just didn't want him, and it frustrated him. And that's what happens when people see outreach by Jews only for Jews. It builds resentment, and people don't understand that. I mean, they think, look at this guy. They don't want George. Who's George? So, anyways, yeah, right. They don't want George Costanza. And it builds resentment, and people think that outreach is such a great thing. It's not. If the only thing you're doing is increasing the thinking in the Jewish world that it's us against them. Because if it's us against them, they are always going to win. Okay? This idea that God is always by your side is not true. We have to earn the support of God. This is why, especially now, I mean, I'm worried about all these countries attacking Israel, because in the last major war, Israel essentially lost. Israel lost the 1973 war, and it was America that saved them. This idea that
Nixon. No, not Nixon.
Correct. It was Nixon that saved them. So this idea that God's always on your side, guys, please, let's be realistic here. I mean, I have a lot of friends that live in Israel. You know, like I don't want it to be harmed. We have to work on our PR. This idea that you're going to have Chabad rabbis on TikTok speaking in behalf of Judaism. I'm sorry, what they spew is bigotry. Chabad, what they spew online, whenever someone goes on any platform and says, I'm only here to speak to the Jews, and this is even Toby Singer says this, I'm not here to give a message over to the Gentiles, but I'm willing to insult and disrespect your prophet and your Messiah, right? But I'm not going to offer you the courtesy to join my movement. All that does is build resentment. Now, the average person who comes in this channel will say, well, don't you know Judaism is against proselytizing? Not true. This is why I have this show, so people could come up here and show me how Judaism is against proselytizing. It's not. Okay. They just repeat it over and over again. Like Goebbels says, if you believe, so like you say something over and over again, people start to think it's a truth, right? And then even when the truth is there aren't too many knowledgeable rabbis on TikTok, right? But I'm on YouTube as well right now. You know, people could come up here like and dialogue the issue. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I will say the Tanakh and Totality, it argues your position better than it argues their position. Like, you know, if I give an example, like Ruth, I don't know, is Ruth authoritative to you, or is it?
It's holy, right? The book of Ruth is holy, like, meaning it's set apart, but it's not given by God or divinely inspired by God, at least like in the way I teach it.
Right. Oh, but like, I'm just saying, like Ruth was a Moabite woman, and she was non-Israelite, but she declared to her mother-in-law, said, "Your people shall be my people, and your God my God." That's Ruth 1:16. And then you got like the mixed multitude in Exodus 12:38. You know, I think the Tanakh and Totality argue your position.
Oh yeah, no, the Torah. All I need is for the Torah to argue my position, right? I mean, if it's in the Torah, then it's authoritative from God. Right, so the mixed multitude, at least the way the rabbis saw it in the Talmud, it's unanimous that there were more of them than they were of Hebrews. And they all accepted the Torah, and a few chapters later, they're all called Israel. I think there's only one instance in Numbers that it refers to them, you know, like just doing something that the Israelites are doing also. Right, but they all just became Israel. This means that the belief system of the God of Israel, whatever you want to call it, Torah covenant, is a universal one. Right? The only reason he sought out Moses to lead out the Israelites from Egypt was because of a promise he made to Abraham. Right? That because, you know, he used Abraham like for this experiment, that through his line, like whether physical or philosophical, he would in some way instill Torah to the world, right? I mean, they would still walk in his ways, right? So yeah, so I mean, this is the way things ran back then. It started with the tribe, but it wasn't supposed to just remain in the tribe, and you're supposed to push people out. That absolutely makes no sense, right? I would say the vast majority of Jews walking around today have converts in their line, you know, like a great amount. So this is one reason I don't like secular arguments for the state of Israel, right? Done like off the back of the Torah, like when they start claiming we're indigenous, and these aren't religious arguments, they're completely secular ones, because according to the Torah, it doesn't matter who your descendant is. Okay, the land of Israel doesn't belong to the Jewish people. The land of Israel belongs to whoever keeps the Torah. Okay, you know, so saying that I'm indigenous, this and that, in some way waters down the whole notion that the Jewish people are essentially a mixed group that share or supposed to share a specific philosophy. And they lie by omission, meaning Muslims will come up on these Israeli TikTok lives and say, oh, you know, what you're saying is that because your mother's Jewish, the land belongs to you, right? And then they stay quiet. The Israelis will stay quiet instead of saying, yeah, no, it's true. If, according to Jewish law, if your mother's Jewish, you're Jewish, but also if you convert, you know, why don't they add that? Because they're scared to say, oh, you're all just a bunch of converts then. You know, you have to be willing for them to say that. If not, you're trampling on the idea of conversion. Say, and then even if that was the claim made, say, like their response should be, according to the Torah, if you believe Like the Torah expects you to believe the land is yours also, but they don't take it that far. You know, I mean, they don't take it that far. But anyways. So what do you believe in, Ultra? Like, what's your theology?
I was going to be Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox, and I was in catechumen classes and everything, but I recently left the catechumen classes and I'm inquiring Catholicism. But I'm learning, I'm also learning Judaism at the same time. So, it's very interesting history.
Interesting. Uh-huh. Well, I mean, perhaps you may want to consider Judaism, it might be for you. You never know.
I'm not going to contest you on that.
Yeah, or even, and this is a compromise, Messianic Judaism.
Right, like Courtney.
Yeah, or like anyone who wants to believe in Jesus but still commit themselves to keep the Torah.
Right.
Yeah? No? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. That's my job here is not to get people to drop Jesus as the Messiah. I'm scared to think what the world would be like if we had less Christians in it today. I mean, to be honest, at least today, I mean, ideally, I wish everyone adopted a more ethical form of Orthodox Judaism. But even in terms of support for Israel, I mean, we have to be honest. If it wasn't for Christians, there would be no Israel.
Right.
The biggest, the largest group of Zionists on this planet are Christians, and we have to acknowledge it. And if Jews don't make that statement, TikTok, YouTube, on any social media, okay, it shows that they're ungrateful, that they're ingrates, and that's probably the worst sin you could do before God. Showing gratitude, say, look, like you don't have to join a religion like to acknowledge the great things they've done for you, at least in the last 60 years, 80 years. Okay, I mean, because some will say, how about the Crusades? How back do you want to go? To make your point. I know, but overall, yeah, no, for sure. I think that if Jews aren't going to be encouraging people to become Jewish, and I don't see that happening anytime soon, they should at least be strengthening the religion of Christians and making them more devoutly Christian. Because the more Christian you become, the more pro-Israel and pro-Jewish and more tolerant, okay, you become.
Right. And I would also say, like, at the very least, just because of Protestantism and everything. Now you might disagree with me, but into the context of Christianity itself, if you look at the New Testament or the Gospels, it would seem, not going to Paul's letters, but the synoptic Gospels themselves, it would seem like Jesus, a majority of the time, he taught a Orthodox view. I know there are things that he said you would disagree with, but, I can't give any examples right now, but, I read the Bible a couple of years ago, and it seemed like he was very strict on keeping the law, and he taught, he made the teachings more strict. I can bring some examples to you later. I can't think of them off the top of my head.
Yeah, but by Orthodox, do you mean Orthodox Christian or Orthodox Jewish?
Orthodox Christian, Eastern
Orthodox.
Orthodox.
Okay. Yeah. What you're saying this because Orthodox Christians have laws that they feel obligated to keep, while let's say Baptists feel like once saved always saved, and grace is all.
Yeah, it kind of makes it lazy, and that they don't have to behave in a godly way, or you know what I mean.
No, I hear you. Yeah, no, I mean from that perspective, from an ethical perspective, it makes a lot of sense that Catholicism and Orthodox Christianity, in terms of structure, is a lot more structured, but for some reason they're still shrinking. Compared to Protestant Christianity, why is that? Why is it that Protestant Christianity has blown up and Catholic churches are somewhat empty?
Because people want the lazy route. They want a bedtime story that they can act however they want to act as long as they, confess Jesus. It's truly that. And, I've seen greater morals rise out of the Catholic and Orthodox Church and Orthodox Judaism than Protestantism in general. They're more devout to do for others. And, that's pretty much it. Like the ones that truly, I'm talking about like the Jews that truly keep Torah, like the Orthodox Jews that were, they were in Israel protesting what was going on, the situation. I don't want to say any further. I don't want to get, your life in it, but I just think better ethnics rise, whether it's Judaism, Messianic Judaism, Orthodox, or Catholicism. All of them teach morals.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Sorry if I'm not making
No, it makes sense. I mean,
right
Jordan
now.
Peterson. I think Jordan Peterson became Orthodox, or he for sure appreciated their position more.
I think he became Catholic actually this year.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I've heard Catholic apologists, which actually do exist. For sure, they're going to do away. Most of the complaints that Protestants have against Catholics, I think, are a bit trivial, and I don't know if they've actually debated like an actual theologian on the issue, like the idea of Mary being the mother of God or being immaculate. Like, I don't know if the average Catholic actually believes that. Mother of the universe, or veneration of saints even exists in the Jewish world. The notion of a tzaddik is essentially a saint in Judaism. That's really where the term comes from.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
And I mean, I disagree when the Jews do it. I disagree with Christians do it also, but it's not necessarily idolatrous, right? Even when there's prayers uttered their way, yes, you're finding redeemable qualities. Okay, that may be idolatrous. It's just because there's a commandment not to beseech the dead. So,
it's a touchy subject.
All right. Well, you have a theological opponent on board here. Welcome, Fish.
No, what we don't like about Catholics is it all has to do with money. If you want to get divorced, you can get divorced, but you got to pay Rome. If one of your family members dies, you got to pay to get them out of purgatory into heaven. Catholic Church is all about money.
Yeah.
It always has been.
That was a priest.
That's what Luther did. That's the biggest thing Luther did.
And a bishop, and the Pope condemned it and excommunicated them. I know exactly what you're talking about. And as you said in the comments, it doesn't matter how the Pope acts. You still have to listen to what he says. If you look at Jesus in the Gospels, he constantly condemned the Pharisees, the rabbis. But what did he say? He said, "Do as they say, just don't do as they do."
As long as they don't violate the Torah, by the way, right?
I didn't catch I didn't catch the first thing you were saying to me. I didn't catch that. Can you repeat that, please?
Oh yeah, sure. So what you were referring to is, what was it called? There was a name for it that the priest had, but basically it was exactly what you said. It was a priest and a bishop, and when the Pope caught wind of it, he condemned them and excommunicated them from the church instantly when it crossed his ears.
What are you talking about? That goes on today. That's going on right now.
What's it called?
Which part? Whenever you want to get divorced and you got to pay Rome to get divorced, or pay to get your family member out of heaven into purgatory?
You mean indulgences?
Which one are you referring to?
Yeah, indulgences.
Yeah,
Can you show me an example of indulgences happening to this day?
Yeah, my mother-in-law.
Your mother-in-law?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Catholic Church does divorces? I thought they do like an annulment.
No, they don't.
You have
They're
to
totally
pay them.
against divorces.
Okay, so they pay for the annulment to say the marriage never happened. Whenever, after I divorced my wife and she wanted to convert to Catholicism, I said, oh, hell no, because we would have to annul our marriage and have to pay the church. And I fought it and I won because we had 2 children and there is no way you're going to annul our marriage just so you can join the Catholic Church.
Right.
And so yeah, that happened to me. Huh?
So I believe you have to meet qualifications to even be annulled. There has to be certain qualities or disqualities of the marriage to even be considered for annulment. And annulment is simply a decree that the marriage was never a true marriage. It's not a divorce because you were never married in the first place. It's a false marriage.
Yeah. So my mother-in-law was married like 15 years and had to pay $10,000 to get her annulment. You got enough money, you can pay for the annulment. They don't care about anything else as long as you got the money to pay for it.
I don't know about that part. I lack knowledge in that area, so I'm not going to argue with you against the money part.
Oh,
by the way, Judaism has this also. By the way,
listen, why do priests have to be celibate? That doesn't make sense. When did that come about? Like the year 700? That's why the Catholics are losing people.
No, well, actually, that's mostly the Eastern Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy. You can be married, you can have children. That's
okay. So the Roman Catholics,
rights.
The Roman Catholics,
certain rights of the Catholic Church.
yeah, but Jesus was celibate. I mean, Paul, I believe, was celibate.
Right.
Well, Paul also seems a little crazy, so I can see why Paul is celibate.
But Paul says that it's better not to be married, but if one's going to burn with lust or something like that, I mean, it says it's in the New Testament that it's better for him to marry. So there is a basis in the New Testament for it. Yeah, I mean, like Mel Gibson, doesn't he belong to a
Paul, not by like James or Peter?
Uh-huh.
Right. I can't even begin explaining all of the shenanigans that happened in other churches other than Catholic and Orthodox. Problems with people comes problems. It doesn't matter what religion you're in, what country. There's going to be people that are corrupt or ill-willed and want money, or that's just something that comes with humanity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that people have to be able to understand that they're never going to agree 100% with the religion. Now, Protestant churches, I mean, basically every Protestant church, depending on who's leading it, it's going to have huge theological differences. Pre-tribulation, post-tribulation. Is like the UPC believes that the Father is the Son is the Holy Ghost or whatever. So it like people overlook those, but for some reason, in the notion of annulment, and I guess it's an admirable pursuit to not just want to grant a divorce because of specifically what Jesus said, so they try to annul it, right? I mean, it seems that they're trying. I don't think the average Christian gives Catholics enough of the benefit of the doubt, saying like, they're trying to do something good, even though I happen to disagree with this area theologically. They won't offer them that courtesy. They'll say, no, they're pagan and they're trying to instill paganism into Christianity. I don't think the average person nowadays is specifically trying to pervert anything. I mean, clearly more people on this planet do more harm trying to do good than specifically trying to do bad. But I think that they're trying. But the idea that you must believe this, right, like in order for me to attend your synagogue, mosque, or church, that's what we're stuck in. When in life, things are typically not between what's utopian and what's horrific, but between what's good and what's better, right? Is it better to go to a Catholic church than to go to no church, right? I mean, assuming you're a Christian, I'm clearly not a Christian, right? I think from that perspective, it's probably better to go to a Catholic church and give your kids something than to say, no, it's from the devil. You know what I mean? Now, I guess people could ask me the same question. Is it better to go to a Reformed synagogue or go to no synagogue? I would say no synagogue, by the way. The conservative, I would be like, okay, I mean, give it a try. It's because like Judaism has something different than almost any other religion out there. That the birth of the Reform movement was an attempt to say that even though the Bible says this, we're going to do that, right? This is not the Catholic Church. This is not, like Greek or Russian Orthodoxy. This is only in the Jewish world, where the atheists essentially wanted to create a religion for themselves and still feel culturally Jewish. Can you imagine a denomination in Christianity that wanted to feel culturally Christian, but said that you don't even have to believe in God to join? So that's a difference. While conservative Judaism, they actually, there's a whole body called the Rabbinical Assembly. that they actually, like, and their studies are online. I think it's called the Schechter Institute in Jerusalem, and they debate theological ideas from the Talmud, and they come up with their conclusions, which may be more left of center to my taste. But the intellectual gymnastics was put in, right? I mean, how can I just write that off? Yeah. Anyways, Alon.
Exactly.
Привет, товарищ.
Привет, как дела?
Слава Богу. Хорошо.
Shavua tov.
All right. So when are you going to church, Alon? And so you're going to a Catholic church?
Oh boy. Aren't we not allowed to be in the church?
That's
Word on the street.
yeah, no. I view, truth be told, Catholicism as idolatry. Okay. That doesn't mean that you can't be a decent person, from a social perspective and be an idolater. I view traditional Christianity also as idolatry. I make an exception for Messianic Jews. What makes these things idolaters is not necessarily that you're worshiping an idol. It's idolatry from a Jewish perspective, meaning avodah zarah means that you're serving God in a way he didn't prescribe. If you believe that the Torah is no longer applicable or has been modified in any way, that makes you an idolater from an Orthodox rabbinic perspective. And that's what I'm talking about. Not necessarily that you're worshiping a statue.
So Islam falls into that category too then?
Yes. And yes, it does. I don't know why the vast majority of Jews want to differ with me.
Right, they have a different law than the Torah.
Yeah.
That's a different God.
But not just that. They say that we changed the Torah. I mean, how much more of a different religion could you have? So it's I mean, it could have the same names. You're like, what do you mean? Allah comes from Aloha, and we have Moses and Prophet David, right? Yeah, no, you have an Arab Moses and you have a Palestinian David. It's not the same guy. You could have the same characters. It's kind of like this movie. Remember the movie Boondock Saints? All right, good movie.
Yes.
Part 2 sucked. They destroyed the whole freaking franchise. You're like John Wick 2, 3, 4. John Wick 1 was good. John Wick 2 had the same characters, but it's not the same. It's clearly written by, I don't know who it's written by, but it sucks. Yeah, so there's a trend shift between the Torah and the Quran. It's not the same. It starts instituting concepts which were developed ideas by the rabbis in the Talmud, and now it's instituting them as so matter-of-factly theological. It's like, whoa, there's many different ideas. I mean, even the notion of Gog and Magog, right? Like, it's one opinion in the Talmud. It doesn't even say it like in the book of Ezekiel. It says like Gog from the land of Gog or something, but not actual two nations. But both the New Testament and the Quran, they run with it like it's a thing. Resurrection of the dead. It's not clear in the Torah, no, but now it's a thing. That means, I'm not saying it's bad to believe in these things, but now suddenly what began as a theological discussion, a philosophical discussion in rabbinic literature, now makes it into divinely inspired texts in the Quran. Divinely inspired, right? I mean, the same God who said don't eat pork is now the same God that tells you to await the Mahdi, or it's the same God. It's like, wow. What they didn't understand is that in Judaism we have this notion of optional belief. There are things that are optional to believe. Essentially, if it doesn't appear in the Torah regarding belief, I'm not saying halakha. I believe Jewish law comes from the Sanhedrin. But regarding beliefs, any theological belief that doesn't appear in the 5 books of Moses is optional to believe. Theological belief. I'm not saying keeping Shabbos. I'm not saying, or what's a rabbinic command? Like reading the Megillah on Purim, or lighting Hanukkah candles, right? These are rabbinic. Those we have to do because God tells us to listen to the ruling body of the Sanhedrin, and they told us to do it. Fine. However, in terms of believing, you're believing God is this, believing God is that, believing that there's going to be a resurrection of the dead. That's a metaphysical concept. The reason it's optional to believe is because regarding what we have to do, that occurred by people voting. It says it like in Hilchos Sanhedrin of the Rambam. He says the way the Sanhedrin would rule things into existence, they would all take a vote, and the majority rules. Right? This is the notion of rov that's misunderstood by people today, that the majority rules, meaning the majority in the court that voted, yay, or override those who voted nay. However, you can't vote metaphysical things into existence. I mean, how would that even look? We're going to vote that God has feet, right? Or, God has anything. or that God operates like this. I vote this, I vote that. Now suddenly that becomes the truth. It doesn't work like that. Meaning, regarding what you do, even the Talmud, even the Torah itself says that the sages, in the Torah talks about the priests, like in the Talmud it talks about the members of the Sanhedrin that used to be mainly priests till they became corrupted. It says that they make errors. There's a whole section in the Talmud, it's called Masechet Torayot, that deals with the errors of the Sanhedrin. How can you make an error on something metaphysical? Right? Oh, God is this, but we're wrong. It's going to change the way you relate to God. That means for it to be obligatory, right, to believe, it has to appear in the Torah, because that's the only revelation that man receives from God, right? National revelation. Regarding what you do, that's halakha. I mean, it could be a mistake. You still have to do it unless it's telling you to do something unethical. The Torah itself says, don't follow the majority to do evil. What it's telling you is that you should follow them to do good. Meaning that if the Sanhedrin, which is what it's talking about, the majority, like the elders, consensus, if it's telling you to violate the Torah, you're commanded not to do it. And God will hold it against you if you do. But you can't hide behind rabbis, because many people justify, like in the Jewish world, mistreating, let's say, converts. Right? There's this thing that Syrians don't accept converts. And if you ask the average Syrian, what the heck are you doing? You know converts exist in the Torah. They're like, oh, no, it's my custom. It's okay. Wait. Only because it's your custom, you think it's okay? Like God's going to give you a pass because it's your custom? I mean, what if it's you're accustomed to wear, bell bottoms and butterfly collars, right? I mean, regardless of now, that you're not going to have a girlfriend at the end of the night. Okay, you're going to pay for your consequences on earth and in heaven, and you're not going to be able to hide behind other people's stupid decisions. That means if you see people misrepresenting the Torah, you can't just go along with it and say it's my custom. And I'm pretty sure it goes like that for the Catholic Church. If you felt the Pope actually did something that was contrary to, like your Bible, the Gospels, and the Torah, right, you would have to say, hey, that's unbecoming of your position, Vicar of Christ, or whatever they call him, right? I'm not going to follow it because I answer, like Hebrew National, right, to a higher authority.
So how do we distinguish on what powers were given to the Sanhedrin by God when He said what they do, what they say is what I say?
Yeah, no, and it gives you an example of the type of advice you're going to give you. It says in all areas of dispute, and it gives examples, between, blood and blood, between blow and blow, between, like practical things, court cases, right? Basically, and it's reiterated in 2 Chronicles chapter 8, verse 19, I believe it says, between mitzvah and mitzvah, meaning what you do, then we have to go to this court and they're going to tell us the actual Torah behind it. Not that they're going to tell us,
Right.
like mystical ideas. Anyone who's ever read the Talmud straight through knows that there's no monolithic understanding on mythical ideas. That means one rabbi will say this and that rabbi will say that, and it's up to you. However, there's more of a monolith regarding halakha, right? This is how we keep Shabbat. This is how we keep Yom Kippur. And even within that, there's disagreements, just because it wasn't clarified as much. This is why we typically go by Rishonim who have a Masorah. It's their understanding that the halacha went right and not left. But in the Bukhari, said, no, we understand it like this. There's ambiguous notions in halakha for sure, but spirituality, you can never argue spirituality because it's all over the place, unless you only learn your Judaism from YouTube. And for some reason, all these Baal Tshuvas on YouTube, former mechanics in Israel, but that became rabbis, watch the same YouTube videos and give over the same mystical understanding.
Well, I have a question about that. Then in regards, for example, on eating milk and meat, the Ashkenazi wait 3 hours, Sephardic 6 hours, and they say, oh, it's custom.
Right.
And I'm like, your body digests the same way my body digests meat and milk. Why,
Okay.
what does the Torah say? I'm on Tovia Singer's side always when it comes to it's not about what we think, what the Sanhedrin, it's what the Torah says. So in that sense, when you said that the Sanhedrin talks about, coming in between disputes or what have you, things like that, I want to know why they get away by saying it's customs. It's my custom to be.
So the reason why it's so dangerous what Tovia Singer is saying, is that he's not telling you what he means by Torah. If you ask him, what do you mean by Torah? He's going to point you to the Zohar, Shulchan Aruch. I mean, he's going to say, this is Torah. And that's the average rabbi. They'll say Torah teaches, and they'll quote the Ramchal.
Right. So it's not the 5 books of Moses.
Correct. I mean, that's not what they mean by Torah. Now, according to Orthodox Judaism, right, this is the way a posek would look at it. You know, like a posek would say, what does the Mishnah say? I mean, what does the Mishnah say? That's how you know. That's how you could cut through the fluff. Everything in Rabbinic Judaism is supposed to stem from the Mishnah. If it's not in the Mishnah, it's not halakha. The Talmud is the Mishnah and its commentary. The commentary is called the Gemara. It's commenting on the Mishnah, but a Gemara can't disagree, you know, with the Mishnah statement unless it brings another statement that was from the same rabbis called Braitot, which are like, statements from the same persons who authored or who appear in the Mishnah that didn't make it into the Mishnah. Fine. So, what does the Mishnah say? It doesn't say you have to wait. There has to be a separation. Typically, what the understanding is that you drink a little bit of water, right? Some would say that even brush your teeth. But the notion of how long you have to wait doesn't appear. The Rambam says around 6 hours. Shulchan Aruch reiterates the Rambam. The Ramah, let me see. Tosfos, brought down also by the Ramah, said 1 hour. But the minhag in Germany was to wait 3 hours. And the Dutch Jews went by Tosfos. So then Dutch Jews wait 1 hour. Yekes, which are German Jews, wait 3 hours. And everyone else waits 6 hours.
But what did the Mishnah say?
It didn't give a time. Now, the argument that most rabbis will come back with is saying, do you think you know more than the Rambam? And then I'd say, do you think you know more than the Ramah? Do you think you know more than the Tosfos? You know, but they'll never say, the Mishnah says this. Why don't we try to keep the Mishnah?
So playing it safe, usually people do the long version of it.
Yeah, playing it safe. And playing it safe is trying not to be more religious than Chazal. So Chazal didn't wait. They washed out their mouth, some form of separation. Okay, but they didn't wait 1 hour, they didn't wait 3 hours, they for sure didn't wait 6 hours. This has been lost. Now, if the average rabbi would come up here, and I would encourage whoever wants to disagree with me to come up, they'll just say, Asher Meza is a fake rabbi, Asher Meza is... They won't say that what I'm saying is wrong. They'll try to defame me and say, don't listen to him, listen to me. But even though, what they've never shown their credentials, not that I care about titles, right, or anything about them, but they'll just discredit me because they'll think, this guy thinks he knows more than my rabbi. It's all rabbi worship. Either way, any way you look at it is rabbi worship. So you could pick up a Mishnah and actually, see what it says there. And that's it. So there you go. Enjoy.
Can we discuss the parting of the ways between Judaism and Christianity in 135? And how Jews and Christians went to the same synagogues. Christians perceived themselves as Jews, but observed Jesus as a Messiah, and other Jews didn't. But everybody got along, and everybody considered themselves Jews until the war, the revolt in 135. And then after that, Rome said, well, if you consider yourself Jewish... No, it's the one after that, not 70 AD.
My bad.
Yeah.
Then after that, the Romans said, well, if you consider yourself Jewish and follow the Jewish this and this and this, then you got to pay an extra tax. And then the Christians, the Jesus observant Jews, Nazarenes, whatever you want to say, said, well, we don't want to pay the tax. And that's where the split came.
I've never heard of that part, right? But it's true. Like, people don't make a distinction between 135 of the Common Era and 70, right? So it in 70 AD or CE was only the destruction of the temple, but the Jews remained in the land till after 135, which was the Bar Kokhba revolt. They basically, they stayed in the land, but like after that, but that was when the actual expulsion occurred. I heard different stories. I heard that during this revolt, during 70 AD, that the followers of Jesus in some way wanted to side with the Romans. And then like the Zealots and everyone else, the Zealots even burned down their provisions, like all their food to encourage people to fight, right? That this in some way created a rift. I don't know if that's true. I don't know where that appears. It for sure doesn't appear in Josephus. But I heard that in terms of 135, I wasn't even familiar that they were Nazarenes. I mean, where is that written that in the time of Bar Kokhba, the Nazarenes played any part with the...
They didn't.
Oh, but that's why.
Okay, so no, in like in between 66 and 70, are you familiar with the flight to Pella?
No.
That's Jerusalem went to Pella, and
oh, wait, hold on. I mean, you broke up for the last 5 seconds. You say it again. No, you broke up.
Okay, let me walk out of the truck here. Let me see if I get the flight to Pella. I think there's 1.1 million Jews in Jerusalem that were, and for that.
Wait, hold on.
Went to Pella.
Hold on, you're breaking up. You're breaking up again.
Like none of
Here, say it again. Say it again. I mean now.
So around 70 is whenever the Christians went to Pella, the flight to Pella, and like 1.1 million Jews were unalived with the revolt in 70, and the Christians survived.
Where's Pella at? Where's Pella?
Is that
Syria?
Oh, Syria. Okay. All right, someone said Syria.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I may touch on it really quick, like 135 AD was the specifically 135 AD was like the Bar Kokhba revolt. That was it was a revolt led by Simon Bar Kokhba, and it was a Jewish revolt against the Roman rule. That really, isn't the parting of the ways between the Jews and the Nazarenes.
Yeah, is this just part of Syrian history? Because I know the Syrian Christians and a lot of people. I mean, they're the ones with the Peshitta, right? They probably,
right.
Yeah. So that's probably how they justified their roots as like the, like the foundation or like the closest church to Jesus. But I mean, can we verify that?
I just heard this last week, and that's why I wanted to talk about it because I don't know very much about it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it.
I thought everybody else probably knows more than I do about it, so that's why I just wanted to bring it up so I could get more. Somebody could educate me on it because I don't know that much about it.
Yeah, maybe Joseph knows. Joseph, welcome. Joseph of Israel.
Oh, sorry. I was walking my dog. No, actually, I think it's in Jordan. Anyways, it's just outside of Israel. I heard.
You're cutting off.
Is everybody getting bad signal?
That's it. It's Iran. Iran is launching rockets over Orlando, wherever this guy is. Anyways, yeah.
I'm in the middle of I'm getting ready to go fishing, so that's why I'm in the middle of nowhere in the rural America.
Hey, give me a follow, brother. I'd like to talk to you. Oh, okay, never mind. Yeah, but like he was saying, like specifically 135 AD. I think he just picked out a part of a conversation because the only thing that I know happened in 135 AD was the Bar Kokhba revolt, and but there was a let me think. See, like after Bar Kokhba, there was a conscious movement by Jewish leaders to clarify the boundaries of the Jewish identity. So that could have led between the parting, but I don't see no official history on it.
Are you sure? Because that occurred in 70. And 70 is when they went to Yavne and also Tiberia, Caesarea, and that's when people claim was the birth of rabbinic Judaism. Although I disagree, Courtney. But 135. I don't. What occurred?
Yeah, it was specifically only the Bar Kokhba revolt. That's the one, and it wasn't 135 like for certain. It was either between 132 or 135 AD.
Yeah.
I'm not grabbing this for my brain. I'm looking online right now.
Yeah, no, 135 was the fall of Beitar. So Beitar was the last standing, of Bar Kokhba, where he became Barzillai, right? No, Bar Koziba. So Bar Kokhba means like son of a star, and Bar Koziba means like son of a lie. You were lied to. I guess maybe he thought he was the Messiah. Anyways, it shows that the notion of Messiah back then was different than what people think of the Messiah today.
I remember now. The Romans wanted to build. Okay, so in 70, everything was burned, and then I think after the Bar Kokhba revolt, they were building a new temple to Jupiter, and in order to pay for it, they added an extra tax specifically to build a new temple for the Roman god Jupiter. And that's never the split. Was the Christians were outside of Jerusalem at the time and didn't feel like they should have to pay for a pagan temple. And I think that's where the parting of the ways really started. I remembered that part.
Yeah, what's that? Ariella Capitolina? Like they renamed Jerusalem, and that's that was Hadrian. I don't remember. Who knows? Anyways, guys, the way you can support Israel is by visiting Israel. That's it. Check it out. That's the extent of the Zionist philosophy being pushed in the show. Visit Israel, see it for yourself. That's it. Okay. All right. Next, Courtney. Does Courtney want to add anything to the mix? Courtney's probably doing something with too much background noise. But anyways, I wouldn't listen to anything a church, synagogue, or mosque has to say about their history. For some reason, yes, I would believe a religious person over a secular person for sure. Right? I mean, look at the Soviet Union. When you dislike someone, you just erase them from all the pictures, like Stalin did to Trotsky. But religious people are just a little better, but not. They're not. It's still the human condition. There was
I agree.
this place in India that we went to that claims to have been the church that was established, because we spoke in different churches teaching Torah there, like trying to bring people back. We took them Torah scrolls and to fill in for them to see it for the first time. And this Indian Orthodox church claims to have been established by Thomas, because Christian tradition teaches that he reached all the way to India and he was boiled in oil or some crap like that. And I don't know if I believe it. It's just, like all these relics.
Isn't the Indian Jews called Ben Israel?
Yeah.
It's like
St. Thomas Christians, yeah.
Or something.
So there's a segment called B'nai Menashe. There's also a group called B'nai Israel, but I don't know. I think they're frauds. It's funny. When they found them, they weren't practicing Judaism, right? I mean, just like the Pashtuns aren't practicing Judaism, but they give people special treatment because they claim to have a blood tie with the Jewish people. I think it's a political move. Okay. On top of that, there's converts who get rejected every day, from making Aliyah, and then you're suddenly going to give someone because of blood special treatment back into Israel. I call bigotry. This is like bad move, like on whoever decided to do that. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't the Rabbanut. It's just, yeah. Now that
Christians are completely different from most of the other Jewish groups too.
Well, I don't trust any type of DNA study. I think it's been politicized to hell, especially because they use it now. The state of Israel uses it to, in some way, back up the indigenous claim. I don't trust. I've seen opposing studies from Hebrew University, and they mention one and they fail to mention the other, right? And I support the state of Israel, but this whole notion like it's been proven or this has been debunked. They're just repeating, you know, the most popular, most shared like articles online, you know, not the ones that disagree with it. So this is why things either confirm the obvious or I consider them wrong. And that's the only way I think reasonable people should traverse life, because people lie with statistics, people lie with numbers all the time. If something sounds too good to be true, it's more likely not true. But when I see a blonde hair, blue eyed, heck, I was just watching this movie last night. Stir Crazy, right? Here's that movie Stir Crazy. The Richard Pryor, like Gene Wilder. Gene Wilder's Jewish, right? Blonde hair, blue-eyed Jewish guy. And I'm thinking, you know, you have a Yemenite Jew, a blonde hair, blue-eyed Jew, and they both claim to be direct descendants to Moses. You know, I mean, could you go from having more melanin to having less melanin and still claim to be pure? You know, it doesn't matter, because converts are also Jews, but they don't make that point.
Wait, can a Cohen marry a convert?
A
Cohen cannot marry a convert?
Right, a Cohen cannot marry a convert. So
yeah, when they talk about ethnical Jews, Rabbi, like I always ask, like, who are you talking about? You talking about like the Ashkenazis, the Sephardi Jews, the Mizrahi Jews?
Yeah, so they all claim it. They all claim, no, we're all direct descendants. You know, it shouldn't be. Look, I don't want people lying either. But now, like, you can't tell who's lying or who's not because the studies have become politicized. Regardless, if you're a convert to Judaism, that land belongs to you, assuming you're Torah observant. That's what it. We should stop making this indigenous claim. Just stop making it, right? But it's hard to do it when the movement itself is secular. Zionism is a secular movement. However, the way they make the idea palatable around Christians is by saying, no, we are biblical Israel. Come on, I mean, pick. I mean, like, who you're lying to when politicians come to Israel, they don't take them to Hebron. You know, they don't take them to Yerushalayim. They take them, well, I guess like to the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem. I mean, they take them to the Holocaust Museum because that's what gave birth to the state of Israel, not the idea of like, we're here and we're biblical Jews. I mean, let's be honest.
How many generations separated can a Cohen marry a convert, or is it never?
Never.
Okay.
Now, if the person doesn't know they're a convert, then it doesn't matter. So I guess that's how long, technically.
I could never marry a Cohen.
What?
Never marry a Cohen. Be blonde hair and blue eyed. As I'm blonde hair, I could never.
Yeah, buddy, it sounds like you're in the Valley of Hinnom right now.
Yeah, you are in one of the tunnels. So you could marry a Cohen, like in some sort of, you know, pride, you know, gay marriage ceremony, you know, because it only applies, you know, to like men marrying girls. Like a man could marry like a Cohen daughter that was called the Bas Cohen, but you can't marry like a man, like, you know what I mean? It's.
Did you hear about the island? Who was the prophet? Was it Ezekiel or Ezra after Babylon?
That was taken to
that returned to. What's that? Was it Ezekiel that returned everybody to Babylon?
No, Ezra, like Ezra and Nehemiah.
Okay, yeah. So when Ezra came back, he was calling everybody to come back. There were communities in Iberia that refused, and also a community off the coast of Africa. It's like basically an island of Cohens, and they have the history of all of them descend from Cohens, and they refused to come back because they didn't feel like they felt like they were still in Galut.
Yeah, it's a Jewish tradition. It's not in the Bible though. Yeah, no.
Oh yeah, I know.
So Yemenite Jews claim to have been the ones who rejected Ezra, and this is why God cursed them to be poor. Like in Israel, like if they call you Temani, like it's another way of saying cheap, because like Yemenite Jews make up of like the poorest segment of religious Jews in Israel, and they believe it's because after the destruction of the first temple, they refused to come back, like, and they stayed in Yemen. So that's what they say.
But the DNA studies show that their DNA show roots to the Middle East, like at 99%.
I don't believe
Yeah,
any DNA study. I don't believe anything that's been politicized. It's been politicized. That's it. You know, when things have become politicized, especially Jews behind it, forget about it. When they have to confirm the obvious or consider them wrong. And also, I mean, it doesn't matter. To me, it doesn't matter. Okay, to any religious person, it shouldn't matter. Because it does matter, that's what pisses me off. You know, because now they're saying, what?
Well, these are Zadokites. They descend supposedly from Zadokites.
Yeah, but who cares? Who cares if all of Zimbabwe are all straight Kohanim going back to Moses? I mean, who cares? I mean, if like if they're not Torah observant, right? Then it doesn't matter. I mean, they're as much as a Gentile as any ethical non-Jew is to them. I mean, on their ethical level. That's it. And like if they're surrounded by crabby Gentiles, they're just as them, assuming they're crabby. No one explains it like this. You know, like, why is it that most people just peddle what Tovia Singer and all these people? Who gives a crap about blood? Who gives a crap about race? We have to stop this, right? Like, I'm Jewish. I can prove it. Who cares? Who cares? I don't have a drop of Jewish blood in me, and I'm happy, and I don't care. I don't want Jewish blood. Okay, you know. Consequently, I guess technically I make Jewish blood now, right? Because I'm Jewish. You know, but it shouldn't matter. And the more people say that it does matter, they're undermining the Torah. There's no difference between a Gentile, right, direct descendant of a Molech, and someone who's direct descendant of Moses. There's no difference physically, spiritually, right? At birth, let's say. They distinguish themselves by their actions. That means someone directly connected to Moses could be, you know, a crappy person, right? Dishonest, not important to God, and someone directly connected to a Molech could be the biggest Torah scholar. Like, I don't know why. You know why? It's because we lack courage in the religious world. No one wants to be made to look unpopular amongst the rabbis. They're like, oh, Tovia Singer saying it. Oh, look, you know how many converts I met who changed their last name? You know what a simpy move that is? I mean, if I was a female, right, and my man changed his last name from I don't know, Michelson to, well, that sounds Jewish, you know, from, give me a Goyish name, Jackson to Mizrahi, right? I would be like, you're a weak ninja. You're just like, come on. I mean, you care what they think? I mean, you don't care what your father thinks now and your uncles, right? I mean, your legacy. You want to be more, get the heck out of here, you know? Like, we need more manly guys. I want a guy to be up there proud, like, my name is Sanchez, you know. Now you'll say Sanchez is Jewish, right? Because it'll say Perez and Torres and all these people. Yeah, they're technically Jewish from the, like, Iberian Peninsula. I get it. It doesn't matter, guys. We have to break this freaking thing that you don't look Jewish, you don't sound Jewish, your last name is, are you sure you're Jewish? Stop playing this freaking, stop peddling it. Let's stick to the Torah, okay? And this is why Andrew Tate converted to Islam. We lost Andrew Tate, guys. We lost Nico. All right. Who else? Who else we're going to lose? Mike Tyson? Kanye? I mean, Kanye's becoming Muslim now. We lost Kanye, guys.
Praise to Allah.
Rabbi.
Yeah?
Rabbi. Sorry to interrupt. Yes. Hi, how are you?
Sheepshead Bay.
Huh?
Sheepshead Bay? No.
Yeah. Yes, in the vicinity. But I'm looking to make Aliyah. I'm working on it.
All right. Yeah, but it's been a while.
Yes.
Have you converted?
Yes, Baruch Hashem, finally.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, I did. I finished my conversion a little over a year ago. And that was a real struggle. I tell you, it was a very big struggle, but Baruch Hashem, it's done in that sense. And now I feel like I can kind of breathe and actually grow into, you know, myself into Judaism and stuff.
Now you can date finally, right? I mean,
yeah, that too. But I actually had listened to one of you. I'm in my 50s, and I was listening to one of your discussions about women in their 50s, and yeah, I'm having that experience.
What I say, whatever it is, I apologize.
No. It was that, you know, most that if you're more or less that if you are seeking a man that doesn't have children in that same age group, forget about it. They may not be probably what you're looking for, so to speak. And
in the Jewish world.
Yeah, in the Jewish world and stuff. And I tell you, it's been very frustrating because I will say I went to one Shabbaton and I was like, that's it, I'll never go again.
These people are unmarriageable. I'm telling you,
Oh, it
when
was. It was hard. I will say I never did this, and I even told the Beit Din this at the time I had my meeting. I never sought conversion for marriage. That was not my thing. But then after being, Jewish for the past year, a little over a year now, I started to realize that to do this is very difficult as a female, single woman. So then I was like, okay, I guess I should try to go out on a date. So I actually went out on a date this last week or whatever, the first time in how many years, but it was not a bad situation. It just was not, for me. But because I am still seeking Aliyah and so forth, and I just kind of like trying to move into the next step in my life. But I have a friend of mine that often talks about, she's really into the Noahide movement. She's really into how the Jewish community should have always been reaching out to bring Torah to the world, but keeping it more or less like Noah within the Noahide for the most part. She definitely accepts my conversion and so forth, but we often go around in circles and then I finally got what she was saying because I didn't understand. She was like, nobody should want to be a priest. It's not your place to be a priest. I don't want to be a priest. And speaking of herself, and I would say, nobody wants to be a priest. If anybody's coming to convert, they're not wanting to be a Cohen. I don't understand. And then finally, she actually expressed that basically that the nation of Israel are priests and that for anybody to want to convert into that, that's not their place, so to speak.
Yeah, but that's a bigoted idea, first of all. Okay, the nation of Israel are not priests. Okay, the idea that God says that I wish that you would all be like priests doesn't mean that, see, when you say it the other way, it makes it seem like Jews are special.
Right.
Jews are not special. Okay, even a Cohen, it says that a Cohen Amaretz is lower than a Mamzer Torah scholar. So a Cohen who doesn't know anything is on a lower level than a bastard child who does. The title means nothing. Like if you were born of a priestly family and you didn't take the time, to become a scholar, because what made Kohanim special was that they were the teachers of the Jewish people, right? That's essentially what made them special, and they had extra regulations, but they had to choose to do that, right? Like if they didn't want to, they could opt out. That means they would still have the title Cohen, and in exile they'll give you an Aliyah first if you're a Cohen, second if you're a Levi, but that doesn't mean that you're inherently special. It's just that in the Torah, God chose a specific line, the Kohanim to do the sacrifices, and the Levites to tend to them in the temple, but that doesn't mean that they were inherently special. It's just, but the whole political system as we have today is a bit screwed up because when you have to vote people into existence, right, into their political positions, then they basically, spend their whole time in office trying to get reelected and selling, so it's easier to just say this family is going to do this and this family is going to do that. Not saying these people are like Ubermensch, they're like special now. So people have used this argument with me constantly. Oh, are you saying that everyone should want to become Israel? Well, not everyone is meant to be a Cohen, so it doesn't make any sense. Okay. Everyone has the ability to become an Israelite. Okay. Not everyone has the desire to continue being in the priesthood. Right. It's you could still be a kosher Jew, and be like a Levite who opts out, and say you know what? I just want to live like a kosher Jew. I don't want to work in the temple. Right. It doesn't really mean that God views you any less. It's just that if you decided to do so, you could because you came from that family. That doesn't mean that you were inherently special. There are no inherent redeemable qualities with any Kohanim. Some will say, oh, they have bad tempers or something. It's all nonsense. Toby Singer is a Kohen, by the way, and he has a terrible time getting remarried because Kohanim have this thing that they have to marry someone who's somewhat of, like pure. So, so this notion that they're going to justify remaining Noahides because not everyone is called to be a priest, it's stupid. It's stupid. Yeah. It makes no sense because it's more standards versus less standards, right? More structure versus less structure. Who are they going to date? Where are their kids going to congregate? Who are they going to, like, there's nothing for the Noahide movement. It's not a real movement. It's just an excuse. Trust me, I'm sure this lady would convert to Judaism tomorrow if it wasn't such a pain in the butt to convert. Right? I mean,
well, she herself is Jewish. But she's very, very supportive of my conversion and so forth. But when I always really encourage friends of mine that, you know, kind of are like teetering outside of the Christianity or the Messianic Judaism world, I always, you know, kind of encourage them to come out and just live a Torah, you know, as a Jew. And, you know, encourage conversion for the most part. You know, I just feel like, okay, if you're going that direction, why not keep going in my opinion? Yeah. But mainly because I guess that's where I was. But, you know, which brings me to the question of the Haftarah from this last week with Naaman, I believe, in Kings. You know, he obviously was a non-Jew who had, you know, the skin disorder and so forth, which, and he sought Elisha for healing for that. And, you know, and it's interesting because he said, okay, you know, I believe that basically Naaman said after his healing, he's like, yes, you know, I only believe in one God, the God of Israel, so to speak. But he obviously could not, I guess he, you know, for whatever reason in that, I don't read the full story, understand the full concept of what all happened, obviously, from just what we read in the Kings. But he obviously had to go back to his way of living after his healing. And then he asks, you know, I guess he's told by Elisha to go ahead and take some dirt from the land of Israel and basically live, you know, continue to in a sense, kind of like he's, you know, encouraging him to sacrifice to only Hashem and I guess in a sense live in secret.
Yeah.
Question is would he be considered like a Noahide?
No one knows anything about who this individual specifically was. Okay, there's too much that's built off of gray area in the Bible. First of all, there's no obligation for Jews to live in the land of Israel. The obligation is for them to visit 3 times a year. Is it good for them to live there? Yes, it's good for them to live there. Throughout Jewish history, the vast majority of Jews have lived outside of the land. The Torah doesn't separate the world between Gentile and Hebrew or Israelite. It separates the world between Torah keepers or people in the covenant and people not in the covenant. It says, what's that famous Isaiah 56? It says, let the foreigner say that God would exclude me from his covenant. This idea that you can be in the covenant of God and be outside of the land of Israel was a real one. You either believed in the God of Israel and kept his Torah, or you didn't. That's what appears in the Bible. People try to understand it today. Well, like, what are they? Are they, you know, FFB? Are they religious from birth? Are they Baal Teshuvas? Are they converts? Are they Noahides? This didn't exist back then. For sure, the state of Israel didn't exist like it exists today. Now it's like people view Israelis like they view like an Englishman or a Frenchman, right? No, back then, to be in a covenant with God, living in the land of Israel, you were considered an Israelite. Okay, but if you lived outside the land of Israel, you weren't considered an Israelite anymore. You were considered a Babylonian if you lived in Babylon, a Persian if you lived in Persia. You could have still been in a covenant, right? The idea that the prophet Daniel was considered an Israelite when he was a eunuch in the court of like Nebuchadnezzar is nonsensical. They didn't view it like that. They believed in the God of Israel and they worshiped the God of Israel as much as they could, meaning like keeping the commandments that weren't tied to the temple and the land. But they didn't feel like, I'm a goy, you're a Jew. Oh, like now I have to go through a whole 2-year conversion program. It didn't cross their mind, right? They were either in the covenant or they weren't in the covenant. And the idea that people would have to prove their devotion to be identified with the covenant, to be accepted in, it makes no sense in the Torah, right? If you wanted to be considered part of Israel, you were. Yes, there were checks and balances. Yes, I believe the Sanhedrin instituted the notion of conversion, but conversions took a day. And yes, you would have to be circumcised. But what? The reason circumcision is considered the sign of the covenant is because you take it with you anywhere you go. You're in the covenant. in America, in Persia, that's what makes you Israel. Religiously, spiritual Israel, being in that covenant. And I guess women are deprived of this because they don't have circumcisions. But the circumcision is the sign that you're in that covenant. Now, of course, not just being circumcised, but you would have to, like attribute some religious significance to it. That's the reminder of the covenant you're in, not your passport or where you happen to live in. Even though, like Rashi writes, like in the section where it says to love a convert, v'aftem et ger lotone, don't mistreat converts, he says this doesn't mean converts. This means anyone from the outside coming in. That if people from Babylon move to Israel and they look different, they talk different, they dress different, even though they may have a Hebraic pedigree, don't mistreat them because they have the status of strangers. So it's not us and them, right? It's not like we're Jewish and you're not. No, if you're in a covenant, why would you lie? Why would someone lie and say, like, I'm in a covenant with God when they're not? Okay, it makes no sense. Like now we've become theological gatekeepers that we decide who's Israel. We decide. What does that even mean? Okay, this is why you can be in a covenant with God and not have a formal conversion, mainly because conversions have become politicized today. If you accept the Torah, like the mixed multitude and the Hebrews accepted the Torah Mount Sinai, and they entered the covenant by doing that, how do you think you enter the covenant today? Remember, God doesn't change. If that's how they entered the covenant back then, that's how you enter the covenant today, by accepting the Torah into your life. Okay, now, God gave the authority to the sages to decide checks and balances, who could properly live in the land of Israel, who would be liable, under the hands of the court to be unalived. They developed the conversion process. That didn't take a year, by the way. I mean, it took a day or so. But that doesn't mean that someone who doesn't go through the rabbinical process is not considered, from God's perspective, in a covenant with God. And this is what's being perverted by people nowadays. They think, look, Lorraine, when you came out of the mikvah, that's not when you became Israel, okay? That's when you became halachically Israel in the eyes of other Jews. Now they could count you on a piece of paper. She went through the conversion. Now we're convinced. God was convinced the day you decided to become Israel. If not, then we're worshiping the wrong God. The idea that he put it in the hands of a bunch of rabbis to decide who's Israel and who's not is unbecoming of a good God, especially, knowing how flawed human beings are. And this is why we have a Torah to look back to and say, like, if he did it back then, if he worked like that in the past, it means he works like that in the present. Okay, and that's so, I mean, you've been Jewish for a lot longer, but you've just been dating these simpy guys for the last couple of years, I guess.
No, I have only gone on one date, but I went to one Shabbaton, and it was like 80-year-olds asking me out. And I was like, and then I have like this friend of mine who's like 40-something years old going after 20-year-olds. And I was just so disgusted. I'm just like, if this is I'm going to go find me a convert. I can't with the mindset of these.
There aren't enough converts. I tell you to go to Israel because your dating pool would be greatly increased. Just don't come back with some secular Israeli guy.
Correct. I don't want to go backwards.
People, to marry or date a secular Israeli is equivalent to marrying a Muslim. Okay, I mean, let's just be honest here. And you're probably, because he's a Muslim, is like striving not to drink alcohol. He's striving to be a better person. An Israeli is just Jewish by name. Doesn't mean anything. If anything, the Israeli will be entitled, which is this sense of entitlement these Israelis have, like, because I exist, I deserve, is through the roof. Okay, it's better to date and marry a Messianic Jew than it is to date and marry a secular Israeli, a secular Jew, secular anything. I mean, isn't it clear? Truth be told, that you have almost everything in common with the Messianic minus the Jesus. So, I mean, let's just try to look at this logically. Because there's many people that they're like, oh, well, at least he's Jewish. No, but he's a communist. It doesn't matter. Like, why'd you convert for? I'm not saying you, but you know what I mean. But I told the story about this girl here in Hollywood who converted. She got a recognized conversion. Rabbi Davis, Rabbi Weinstock, I don't know, like a very recognized conversion. And then she started dating, and she was 52, 53. And then she would tell me, Asher, these men are undateable. It's just, the men that you get at that age in the Jewish community, what can I tell you? At least in America, I don't want to say too much. But don't give up. Don't give up. And it's a shame that on top of all that, I encourage people to consider becoming Jewish. It's
Thank you, Rabbi. I'm not giving up for sure. I'm moving forward. I didn't go this far and go through all of that to just stop.
Look, there's J-Date, there's J-Wed, and all these other things.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what. Okay, and I mentioned this in a video once. It got me a lot of flack. I got a lot of hatred because of this. And when people have a hard time dating, or marrying from that perspective, and again with the alternative, because people are not going to stay alone. It's not reasonable to expect people to stay alone. So what they end up doing is, like, at least in the convert world, they end up marrying some Israeli or some secular Jewish person because they can't find someone. Do not exclude Messianics from your dating pool.
Okay.
What's the alternative? No, honestly, what's the alternative?
Oh, no, I get you. 110%. I mean, for sure, I would not want to date a reform or anybody, like you said, that's extremely liberal and doesn't want to keep any form of Torah at all.
We marry values, not ethnicity. Like, and this is what the people here on TikTok disagree with me all the time. For them, it's ethnicity, not values. They'll tell a secular Jew the most important thing you could do is marry someone else who's Jewish and have Jewish babies. Wrong. Not according to the Torah. You marry values. So you have someone that you share 80% values with, okay, assuming they're Jewish. I mean, like, you can't marry a non-Jewish person. I mean, there's no way to write a ketubah between a Gentile and a Jew. But assuming the person's Jewish, whether they converted or they were born Jewish, okay, it's better to marry such an individual, assuming that he's a good man, a God-fearing individual, a Torah-keeping individual, than to settle for a secular Jewish person, right, who doesn't believe in Jesus.
So with that said, though, I mean, obviously, coming from Messianic Judaism from years back, I am aware that a lot of the, quote, Messianic Jews who claim to be Jewish are actually from a Reform and sometimes occasionally a conservative background, which then right there will, I mean, I know it's not.
Again, they don't share your values then. I'm talking about someone who shares your values.
Okay. No, but I mean, if they went from Reform to Messianic and they were technically considered Jews under Reform or conservative, then obviously an Orthodox would never have considered them Jewish, even once they went to Messianic.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's not the easiest thing, but I'm just.
But I agree. I understand where you're going, 110%. I mean, I like I said, when I decided to go through my conversion, it was not with the intent of going and finding a wealthy Jewish man and all that nonsense. It was nothing to that effect. But as I've, I am like the Jewish woman that's always invited here, invited there, and walking here and walking there and stuff for Shabbos. And it's I feel like a third and fourth, a third wheel everywhere. So I started to realize that I need to, maybe I do need to consider, getting married and so forth. So I do understand where you're going with that for sure. And I'm hoping that once Aliyah makes process, that I can move forward from there. But thank you, Rabbi. I really appreciate it.
So we have 5 minutes left on the show, and Stephen has a disagreement. So go ahead, Stephen.
Oh, yes. Well, you shouldn't marry anyone you want, right? But you shouldn't like, it's good if you want to marry a Jew or a non-Jew, but anyone can marry anyone. Like we are all human, right? So it's not like you're committing murder or like you're doing something wrong.
Wait, that's okay. That's a given. I mean, people could do whatever they want, but we have an agenda, right? So our agenda is to push Torah Judaism and make more religious Jewish families. So yes, technically, I mean, in Israel, you can marry a dolphin. But there was this lady in Eilat who married a dolphin. Right? That doesn't mean that you should marry anyone you want, right? I mean, there's
yes, but I believe like you can marry like a non-Jew and it still wouldn't be evil or wrong or even harmful as long as you love the person and they share the same values as you. Like, for instance, you marry a Muslim man, he turns Jewish, or he doesn't turn Jewish, but he's still a good person. It doesn't matter to me.
Well, then he doesn't share your same values then. I mean, if someone doesn't share your religion, big picture, I think that There's going to be a conflict of interest there, especially when you have kids.
Yes, that's true. That's true. That's true too. Sometimes kids don't become Jewish because of their father not being Jewish or their mother not being Jewish. So you're right.
Are you single?
Oh, I'm single.
There we go. I knew it. I could tell. In terms of this notion of irreconcilable differences, if you're with someone, okay, that people argue over the stupidest things. This is not a stupid thing, right? But you could imagine how many arguments you're going to have regarding this. It's better to find someone. And again, I don't see a big difference between an Orthodox Jew and a Messianic Jew. I mean, from that perspective, assuming they're both committed to Torah, they both love the Bible, they both, they could keep Shabbos together every holiday. Okay, they disagree on who the Messiah is. It's not ideal. I'm not saying that Orthodox Jews should marry Messianic Jews. However, if the alternative is a secular Jew or a Messianic Jew, go with the Messianic. Okay.
Well, yeah, that's true too. I think what you're saying is valid.
There's many Orthodox people who marry secular Jews just because they're Jewish. Oh, you could technically marry them. I mean, they're Jewish. Halakhically, you could write a ketubah between both of them. But it's a nightmare.
It is a nightmare. You don't share the same values. Like they don't believe. Like maybe they don't believe in God. Maybe they don't believe the Ten Commandments, stuff like that. And then stuff happens, and then they argue like how to raise their children and everything like that.
Anyways, all right. On that note, guys, we're gonna end because thanks for stopping by. I may come on later.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Be well. Thank you. Follow, share. Be gebenched.